Hi folks, it's Mr. Slaybaugh. We're going to go over a five-stroke roll lesson, how to develop that technique, how to build that technique, and how to control that technique. We're going to be doing it mostly with open stroke rolls. When it comes time to play a five-stroke with a multiple bounce roll, all you'll do is change the technique a little bit so that it's not quite this open in the fingers and that you'll have a little bit more fulcrum pressure. We'll address that later on. Let's start first with what is a five-stroke roll? It's part of the Percussive Arts Society Standard American Drum Rudiments. Way back when, before notational practices, drummers learned how to play through talking about drumming, not necessarily reading it. So a five-stroke roll meant quite literally that there were five strokes to this roll. And the first two hands are doubled usually in this. Sometimes it's the other way around, the last two hands. But it's three strokes. You can think of them as eighth notes. Double the first two and do not double the last one. And there's five strokes, hence the term five-stroke roll. Now, you should have equipment for this. Is clearly you're going to need a drum pad or a snare drum, sticks, and you're going to need the five-stroke roll technique sheet that I'm going to include in the description of this video. I think it's very helpful. And I will not take the tempos that are listed yet. I'll demonstrate A through H and how they're going to sound and talk about that a little bit. Let's get started. For letter A, you'll see that they've got it written as quarter notes in 5/4 time. 5 strokes, 5/4 time. But it's fast. It's quarter note equals 210 beats a minute. And it's a great way to really focus on keeping a smooth and even stroke, and also the variance between a tap and an accent. Let's review. A tap is always played low, and an accent is always played high. Contrast is what makes that sound, that accent, pop. So we want to keep our taps as low as we can within control, and then we want our accent to be as pronounced as we can within control. All of this is with the caveat of sounding good. So I'll demonstrate right now how this works. Very simple. Now let's set the metronome to 210 beats a minute. That's what it's going to sound like. Let's try doing this together a little bit. 1, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Sorry for my flubs, but you can see there's a fluidity to this. All we're playing is, and this is another important thing to remember whenever you're playing any sort of percussion passage, is that there's always going to be what's called a check pattern, a pattern that keeps everything going, a motor to it. So in this case, watch what happens when I take the left hand out of this exercise. You'll see that that is a consistent passage. Keeps going. Same thing too with the left hand. miss an accent. So what we're trying to do is keep the motor always going, and we call that a check pattern, okay? Now, let's look at how they wrote it in letter B. The tempo's a little bit slower, but the rhythm is a little bit faster. So it's 184 beats a minute for the eighth note. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 1, and ready, and. Some things to be aware of as you're playing. Smooth and even. Both notes in the double beat passage need to be heard cleanly and clearly. We want to make sure that we hear those. You should also refer to the Fred Sanford double beat combination, which I have posted earlier with a recording of how the part works. It involves different double beat passages on each hand and even 3 beats on each hand. And the goal is, throughout that exercise, is to sound smooth and even. You're going to find that you're going to have to learn that there is more or less an even grip here and an even grip here. A little bit less on the pinky, and it gets a little bit firmer as you go to the fulcrum. But we're talking about small degrees. That's what's going to keep that 16th note in this exercise right now, the 8th note, smooth and even. And as it gets to 32nd notes, it has to remain that way. Let's go on to letter C in the exercise. This one is, again, a little bit slower tempo-wise, but the rhythm is now quicker. 16th notes. Chicka chicka dot, chicka chicka dot, chicka chicka dot, chicka chicka dot. 1 and a 2, 3 and a 4. 1 and a 2, 3 and a 4. Remember, all drumming is just rhythms. We're playing rhythms. Let's try that together. Good technique, good posture. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and ready now. Okay. Let's move on to letter D. You're going to see it's repetitive, but we're looking and we're seeing now for the first time the rhythm placed in 32nd notes with an 8th note. Do not let go of the stick in order to make this happen. Keep the stick firmly in control so that the double beat combinations sound smooth and even. You can think of it as this way. For the check pattern. Ra, 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 ra. Ra, 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 ra. Let's try it together. Again, my grip is still the same as it was for letter C, letter B, and even letter A. All I'm doing is I'm moving my check pattern a little bit faster. The check pattern for this is, oddly enough, but that's how 5-stroke rolls are notated originally in the standard American drum rudiments. Here we go. 1 and 2 and ready is now. Now, something that you should have noticed by now, I tried at the very beginning to hold on a little too much, and I didn't let my forearm follow. The forearm needs to move with the wrist. We don't just play it all forearm, and we don't just play it all wrist. You heard me start it playing it all wrist, and it sounded a little lumpy. And as I heard it in my ears, I realized that I needed to smooth it out. So I added a little bit of form into it. We want the smaller muscle groups to do the little stuff and the larger muscle groups to do the larger stuff. So to keep the momentum going, sometimes you're going to need to use your forearms. Do not let your shoulders get into it, and don't let your arms move laterally. They just move up and down is all they're doing. Yes, I'm providing space for the stick to bounce, but I'm still touching the stick throughout that whole exercise with my fingers. Why? It helps me control the beat after the diddle. And that is so terribly important in all roll passages. Now, let's look at letter E. Letter E shows that 5-stroke rolls can be played with a triplet. And a triplet meaning so now they're not 32nd notes, they're 16th notes. But they have very much the same character to them. It's just that the check pattern is now triplets, as I noted. And in this case, the accent is on the third beat of every triplet. Let's try that together. Set the metronome to 146 beats a minute. Let's try just playing the triplets without an accent. Some things you should notice in that technique. My wrist is still turning, not as pronounced as if I were isolating the wrist with no forearm, and the forearm is moving gently up and down. Let it be smooth and even. Now, let's try that very same exercise with the accent on the third beat of every triplet. Check it, check it, check it, check it. You should notice then that the taps versus the accents are quite pronounced. Now we're going to put diddles, 2 notes on each of the low taps to create the 5-stroke roll. Again, there's 16th notes. 1 and a 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2. I can't say it that fast. But 1 and 2 and 3 should be the rhythm that you should be hearing. Okay? Let's try this now. You may want to try this slower, but I'm going to demonstrate this at tempo. Check it, check it, check it, check it. You'll notice there that it seems like that accent and the 16th notes don't really stop between one another. And they don't. Remember, you have a check pattern. So that those diddle passages are low and smooth. Now, in letter F, it's presented as a 16th note rhythm. This is probably one of the most common ways you'll see this, because it gives you a feeling of forward momentum, kind of like a gallop. Also, it's easier after the roll to play an accent, because there's a natural tendency to kind of want to lean on that last note as a release. Gives it this sense of forward momentum. Still, roll passages, diddle passages are low, accents are a little bit higher. But you're going to, as you get faster, have to lower your accent height, okay? There's your 8th note. Dig it up, 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 dig it up. There it is. We're going to do this all right hand lead, not the way it's written right now. Then we'll do it all left-hand lead. Let's play the check pattern first, the rhythm. 1 and 2 and ready, and. Notice there, the accent's not that much higher than the tap, but the contrast. I am not changing my grip to create that accent. I'm keeping the grip consistent and I'm keeping the motor. Or in this case. And you'll notice the one-handed exercise, warm-up exercise, tap-accent relationship does that. Another thing that builds these techniques. Okay, let's try that with a roll. Check, 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 check. Keep that eighth note check pattern going in your head. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and ready, and. Okay, as you get better at this, try to smooth out that roll and make it a little bit lower. Let's try this left-handed here. First, the check pattern. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and ready, and. Ooh, Mr. Seba needs to practice. Let's skip that. And let's move on now to G. Mr. Seba will practice that more at home. It's been a while. Look at letter G. Now you're going to see that the roll occurs beginning on the first two notes. One and 2 and 1 and 2 and. The accent is now on the upbeat in 4/4 time. And we're playing the roll. The roll low with the note following it accented. Okay? Let's try G. Subdivide that eighth note. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and ready now. Okay. You may want to slow that down a little bit. So that you can get comfortable with that. Now, if you notice in letter H, it really is letter E, just at a faster tempo. But again, we're talking about triplets now. Okay. Let's try that so you get a chance to hear what that sounds like at 152 beats a minute. Play the check pattern first. Check it, check it, check it, check it, check it, check it, check it. Check it, check it, check it, check it. Let's try playing the roll now. 1, 2, check it, check it, check it, check it. Not my best work. Let's try that again and smooth it out. 1, 2, check it, check it, check it, check it. That's better. Okay. So work slowly. Develop your 5-stroke roll technique. It's going to become real handy in other roll passages, and it's a great way to start learning advanced roll technique. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.